Record to cloud. There we go. Perfect.
Go ahead.
I am going to start the screen share. And we're going to have this in the ordinance. All right. Is this too small? Should I make it larger?
A little bit if possible for the older.
Yeah, look at me.
Or not. Yeah.
Is this fine? Is
It's
it too
good.
large?
No, it's good.
That's good. Okay. All right. I am ready. I am going to mute myself.
All right.
I have the ordinance ready to be pulled up for after this. And
Cool.
So it's
We're at
7:03. We're open the
Yes.
doors and we'll start at 7:05.
Sounds good.
Great.
So opening doors.
yep.
Have a great meeting, everybody.
Thanks, Justin.
Vernon just emailed that he will be joining soon, if anyone else didn't see it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for our Arts Trust Fund public meeting. We have a lot to talk about tonight. I'm Stephanie Chaikin. I'm the director of the Center for the Arts at New Jersey City University. And we have Christine Goodman, the director of the Jersey City Office of Cultural Affairs. Our Jersey City Arts Council is well represented this evening, starting with McAdam Smith, Executive Director, and Chair Heather Werfler Sandler. Vernon will be here in a moment from the Mayor's Office, and Councilwoman Mira Prince Ari. So I'm going to toss this to you, Christine, to start us off.
Thanks, Stephanie. And thanks again to NJCU for bringing us all together. I believe this is our 4th or our 5th meeting. And thank you to everyone who took time out of their night tonight to come and to continue this discussion for the Arts and Culture Trust. We have the agenda here, and if you do need to reference the ordinance, you can go to jerseycityculture.org, where you can download the most recent version of the ordinance. So to start us off, we are going to jump over to the ordinance and go over the changes and additions that have happened since our last meeting. Starting at the beginning, we do have that language change there that was recommended for artists and organizations to be added. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 lines down, 6 whereases down. We've added the artists and organizations. So if you can scroll a little bit, please, Sabrina, thank you. We are going to jump down to the next section that had some adjustments, which is 5 5A, keep scrolling, 5A3, keep going. It's the top of the next page. Great, right there is perfect. So I'm going to talk through the term limits for the committee, and you can follow along with what was posted on the website. All members shall serve for a term of 2 years in staggered terms. In order to establish staggered terms, the mayor, with the advice and consent of council, shall appoint 3 members initially selected to a term of 3 years, representing wards A, B, and F, and 3 members initially selected to a term of 2 years, representing wards C, D, and E. No committee member shall serve more than 2 consecutive terms, totaling a maximum of 5 years, including their initial staggered term or midterm appointment. A former member may be nominated 2 years after their last consecutive term. All subsequent appointments, except to fill vacancies, shall be for the full term of 2 years. And 5, which is right below that, is talking about removal, which I did want to point out because there was a change there. All members, or I don't know if this was a change, but we consolidated 2 sections is probably more appropriate. All members of the committee may be removed by a majority vote of the Arts and Culture Trust Fund Committee and a majority vote of the Municipal Council based on the criteria stipulated in the committee's best practices and bylaws, and or for failure to comply with subparagraph 5 or failure to comply with Chapter 33 ethics of the Jersey City Municipal Code. So that just condenses all the removal to 1 section. And then if we scroll down, the brand new section to go through would be section 6. This is on the last page, yeah. Okay, so this is where we get into the piece about the actual fund and the process of how the fund is going to operate. And this is brand new, so hopefully you had a chance to access the document on the website. And then after I read through this, we'll open it up for some discussion, questions, and to hear feedback on this. So 6A, 95% of monies collected through the Arts and Culture Annual Levy shall be deposited into the Arts and Culture Trust Fund for distribution by Arts and Culture Trust Fund Committee. 5% of the monies collected through the annual levy shall be given to the Jersey City Arts Council, which will provide a public resource for artists and arts organizations and will serve as an administrative partner of the trust by supporting and counseling applicants, as well as promoting the Arts and Culture Trust Fund to the Jersey City community. B, upon review of an application, the committee shall award and distribute monies based on criteria and evaluation standards stipulated in the committee's bylaws and best practices. Criteria for evaluation shall include, but is not limited to, an evaluation and recommendation from the grant review panel, quality of work, likeliness to succeed, and fulfillment of the fund's stated goals. C, the Arts and Culture Trust Fund monies shall be used to support creative and cultural activities included but not limited to performing, visual and fine arts, music, dance, graphic design, film, digital media and video, architecture and urban design, humanities, literature, arts and culture education, historic preservation, museum curation, crafts, and folk arts. And again, those disciplines are outlined in the state statute that was taken directly from the state statute. So these are the new pieces since our last meeting. And we can either keep that in the share or we can open it up to comment and discussion at this point. There we go.
Hey, Christine or Stephanie, maybe could we put the link to the PDF in the chat? So maybe if folks want to open it on their own computer to be able to look at it while we do the feedback.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. And we'll just give a couple of minutes in case folks need to look at it themselves.
If anyone has comments or questions, feel free to type it in the chat or at the bottom of your screen, you'll probably see a reactions button. It looks like a smiley face with a plus sign at the top. If you click that, there's a raise hand function that'll let us know that you want to be called on, and we can call on you for comment.
Okay, we can give it a couple of minutes, and then if we want to move on to priorities, we can. The goals and priorities section. Give me 1 second, Sabrina. Let's just make sure that. Are we good to move on?
You can let us know in the chat too, maybe if I'm still reading, then just let us know and we'll pause. We're doing great on time. So if people need more time to read through the ordinance, that's fine. Great. Thank you, Ashley. I can just speak to this one question while people finish up reading about what is meant by supporting and counseling applicants. Yeah, maybe Jasmine, open. Does my video? Sorry, I don't know if you can see me or not. There we are. Open to suggestions if there's a better word, but we have heard from the community that, and we agree and want to provide support in writing out the grants. We're going to try to set up, times where we can sit down and help people who might be first-time grant applicants or need help navigating the navigating any part of the application process. So that's what we mean by being available in that way. Jasmine, do you want to chat? You can either type if you're more comfortable, or if you want to speak to this, we'd love to hear from you. I don't know, can we unmute Jasmine? If that's possible.
Jasmine, if you use the raise hand function, I can see you more easily and unmute you.
Oh,
Or ask
okay,
you to
she's
unmute.
saying it, that makes sense. It's a little hard to like see everything tonight. Um,
So there was a question about putting Jasmine's comments about counseling, et cetera, for the Arts Council in the ordinance. When you're writing ordinances, sometimes it is important to have some flexibility. The Jersey City Arts Council will be entering a memorandum of understanding with the city. That's part of the what this sort of that's going to outline the terms of the so the relationship that they have with the city when with regard to the 5% that's going over to them. We felt that that was an important thing to do, and that is where those kinds of conditions and terms will live within that memorandum of understanding.
Thank you for that. We have a couple of hands raised. If I can call on Jay LaRock, I'm going to ask you to unmute to ask your question.
Thank you for pronouncing that extremely correctly. Hello, I'm Jayla Rock. I'm very grateful to be here because actually I saw it on Instagram and I was like, should I go? I don't know if I should go. I'm like, I know I'm an artist, but I'm not sure like if this is a meeting that I would, it would be appropriate for me to come. And then Deep Space, which I love Deep Space, and like, all the art galleries in Jersey City. I really support all the art galleries in Jersey City. And Deep Space sent me a message and they're like, yo, check this out. And I was like, okay, that's a sign I need to come here. And I'm an artist in Jersey City, born and raised, Puerto Rican, all LGBT flow. And I dance, I'm a dancer. I do competitions. I represent Jersey. And I was always in New York. I was always in New York doing things in New York because I had the opportunity to do things in New York. And now, I'm staying in Jersey City more because, I'm not working in New York. And I really want to support, I really want to be involved in the art community in Jersey City. And I want to learn. And my education is what it is. And I appreciate my education. But there's things that I need to learn and I want to gain knowledge on. And that's all I want to say. And I want to ask more about grants because I'm looking to, I really would love to create an event in Jersey City that is for the community and like spreading joy, all that stuff, fundraising. I really want to be involved in that. And I just need to know, the steps. And I've emailed Christine Goodman, actually. I did email you before in reference to that, about proceeding with that. And yeah, it's a lot to say, but that's all I'm going to say for now. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being with us. I think you're in the right place. We have another hand, Stephanie Daniels. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hey, hi, good evening. Thank you for hosting this, Stephanie. So I noticed that there's something in the ordinance about the JCAC serving as a resource for artists and arts organizations. And I assume that sort of thing will be the thing in the MOU, possibly. But can you articulate a little bit what you're thinking of there?
Sure, I can jump in. We really haven't finalized anything, so I don't want to say anything specifically. But like Heather mentioned, one of the feedback that we have gotten from people is that the grant application process can be a difficult process that disenfranchises some individuals, organizations. So one thing we were looking at was an opportunity for us to be able to do some work in outreach and help in those regards. We want to be able to have meetings with the community to see what kind of resources those are. And I think, like Mira said as well, one of our hopes is that with the flexibility, we can be reactive to the needs, as opposed to trying to cement everything before the process has kind of had a chance to play out. It's difficult for us to say for certain these are the resources we will need ahead of time.
Well, I mean, I guess I just feel like it would be good for you guys to have a plan. You know, certainly there are other arts councils in other cities that you could take some cues from and see what kind of resources that those organizations offer to the community. Rather than the wait and see, because, you know, we're talking about public money, and I feel like
wait and see is not wait and see until everything is in. It is waiting and seeing, in part to see as applications start to come in and as the process begins to see what those needs are. We are definitely reaching out to other arts organizations, arts councils around the state and around the country as well. And if you have specific things, please, you know, pass them along. We're happy to, if there's specific arts councils that you're thinking of as well, happy to reach out to them too.
I think Mike is here and wanted to speak to that also. Sorry, I'm just having trouble finding him. Just to reiterate, we just have not finished drafting the agreement yet. Some of these things we'll be talking about tonight, some possible ways that the Arts Council will participate. But even doing these meetings like this is a service, and having public meetings, which we've been doing voluntarily, we need support to be able to continue to do these kinds of things.
Great. We have one other hand up right now from Aurora. Do we have time for another question on this topic? Sure. I'm not hearing a no. So I'm going to ask you to unmute, Aurora, and ask your question.
I actually have a bit of more of a comment about this whole thing. My name is Aurora, just an introduction, and I've been an artist around the Jersey City area for the past 8 years. I traveled around the United States because I couldn't be able to do anything in Jersey City. There was no space. And then when there was space, it's too expensive. And then when it came to funding as well as, but one of the biggest things that I thought this fund was going to address is artist housing. If you go look at other cities that are doing similar art programs and stuff like that, they get preyed on by, what happens is that all the artists come and move to Jersey City. But guess what? The developers start realizing that and start redeveloping the entire cities to push out the artists. Now, this happened in Jersey City a while ago. And I clearly remember that the, what was that supposed to arts section of downtown Jersey City, which is now like condo land. So that was a broken promise from Jersey City that severely affected artists that a lot of artists don't even know about because it just never came into fruition and stuff. But that's one of the main things about Jersey City is the amount of rent. And if you're going to create this kind of like representation of artists in Jersey City, the housing issue has to be addressed, if especially it's from A through F, because like, you know, the artist that came from Ohio on his parents' like trust fund, who's in downtown, is able to have the grant money, get more access to the grant money because he has the time, the academic practice, etc. So it's not just like, hey, here's $1,000 so you can go do your little party and your little dances and stuff like that. It's how the city could be able to use this money to help artists be able to be independent and achieve in Jersey City, not become like it has become. You know, you guys did the whole like 90 murals in 3 years thing, but that didn't change anything for artists. So I think that Jersey City in a city, it has a very skewed notion of what an artist is. You guys want us all around. But we can't pay for shit there. We can't pay for rent. We can't find a space. If we have to find a space, it's got to be 30 people involved. That becomes a messy thing. So I don't see any of that. And my problem with this thing is that it might become a nonprofit shooting pool, which means is that if only nonprofits will be able to get the grant money if artists don't have the time. If you have an artist that's working 3 jobs to pay for the rent, then what's the point of them doing art here in Jersey City? That's all I just had to say. I think this is one of the biggest things that I thought that this was going to bring up. And I'm excited for this because it's a very interesting fund. But there's a big thing that needs to be discussed here because it's not, any artist that you're going to come here, it's too expensive to live here. So this fund is going to run dry very easily because it's not going to be a resource. It's just going to be a money pit. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, and all good points. I think, you know, at this point, we're discussing the ordinance. So there's the second part of the meeting. Do we want to just jump to, for anybody who would like to see what we're covering tonight, could you put the agenda up just one more time? Great. So right now we're talking about the pieces that are the sections of the ordinance that cover the committee and the operational pieces of the fund. And then we are going to now transition. This is probably a good time to start transitioning over to talking about goals and priorities around the fund. Okay, thank you. You can close it out. So let's do a next visit to the chat and see if there's more that we want to talk about before we transition. And yeah, thank you, Aurora. Thank you for your comment.
I see a question just about the rate. So just in case people missed that last month or the beginning of this month, the rate for the trust was approved. What Kyle, I see you're asking here, the quarter penny means 1/4 of a penny per $100 of assessed property value. And so we expect that to come in at close to $1 million for the first year total. So if anyone missed those meetings, that's what the quarter penny that Robinson's referring to here means.
I saw Kat Hecht has a question about the committee selection process for the first year. So I think, I don't know, Kat, if you want to unmute yourself to be more specific about your question, but the first year is, we brought it up, but it is a little complicated, but because the goal is to create staggered terms. So I don't know if this is what your question was. The first year, 3 members will have, half the board will have a 3-year term as opposed to a 2-year term, but that is only to create staggered terms so that we don't hit every 2 years have the entire board stepping away at the same time. This way, there's always some kind of institutional knowledge that gets passed on year to year. But yeah, so I'm not sure if that's your question, but that odd kind of wording is because we want those first terms for a few of those people to be 3-year terms, just to create a staggered approach. Did that answer your question?
Hey, yeah, so not really, and thank you for trying. I didn't want to go into too much text in the chat. I understand everything that you just said, McAdam, so thank you for clarifying that. I guess for me, I'm just wondering for the very first year, since it's going to be basically an appointment from the mayor's office and the city council, what exactly is going to be the process in terms of finding the people that are going to apply? Can you talk about the actual process? So people should email XYZ, When, you might not have the full schedule yet, but like, when should people start doing it? I know that in the last meeting, we talked about start sending them now. Is that realistic? Up until when should we be sending that? When should we be thinking that the vote is actually going to take place? All of those kinds of things, just so that we can kind of all be on the same page, because I think saying that the process is going to be that for the first year, it's going to be selected by the city council and the mayor's office can be confusing for people who have never witnessed that process via another selection for other committees. So is it going to be run exactly the same way? Are we going to be a little bit different because this is about the arts and reaching out to the arts community? And I guess the second part of my question on that would be, how are we going to make sure that we are really reaching out to everybody in the arts community, because we already have a real hard time in communicating throughout all the different neighborhoods, to make sure that everybody knows that there is the selection committee in place in case they want to select somebody or they want to self-select.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. I can give our take on it, but the city might be able to give a little bit better on the details of other committees. I can't speak as much to that. But one of the things we were hoping for with this, with the committee, is to have a check and balance system kind of for all of the points whenever possible. As we looked at other options, this felt like a way that there were checks and balances throughout, so that, like you're saying, the grant review panel, the committee, excuse me, that will be appointed by the mayor with the consent of city council. So city council will have to approve all of those votes. The nomination form will be a public nomination form. Anyone can nominate themselves. I think our goal is to have it opened by June, but I'm not 100%. It's not open yet. We're working towards it. It will be open, and we will share that around very much so. The Arts Council is going to be available as a resource for the process as well. So we will be involved, at least in the kind of can help with the administrative side of collecting applications as they come in. And we will be working with Cultural Affairs in the city as well to be working on the review committee. I'm getting confused with the terms of everything. I apologize, but there is the Arts and Trust. The Arts and Trust Committee is the final say, but they will have a review panel which will be a larger group of artists and experts. And we will be working with the city as well to oversee and organize those. So we felt this had a community review process, an appointee review process. The committee and city council are working together so that there has to be checks and balances throughout. Yeah. Does that get a little bit closer? I'm sorry, I probably missed something in there. And I don't know if Christine or Mira wants to add something.
I think Vernon, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was just simply going to say that it's not unlike most other committee or commissions that are public commissions for the city, whether it be the planning board or the zoning board, etc. Typically, candidates that are interested in the position communicate their interest through the clerk's office, and they maintain those resumes or those applications over time in the clerk's office, and where they say, I want to be involved, I want to do this or the other, and they'll slot them in so that when a vacancy becomes available, the appropriate authority will then be able to review those applicants for consideration. Typically what will happen is that the executive will put together a resolution that will go towards the council, listing out the names of ultimately those who are chosen to fulfill the position, and then the council will have its way and say on the matter at that point.
I just feel like I can offer a little bit more clarity. So the nominations haven't opened because the ordinance has to pass first, so we can't have people nominating for something that doesn't exist yet. And I know we are seeing a lot of things feeling fast, and we're doing our best to communicate, but also with the goal of getting this funding out near the end of the year. This is the order that things have to happen in, but there will be an open nomination process, like McAdams said. So anyone in the community can nominate themselves or someone else. And, this all kind of ties into the question about the Arts Council's role. The majority of the funding to the Arts Council will be staff. I mean, most of what the services that the Arts Council has provided up until now and what we intend to provide is service. There's not, goods, it's just service. And there has to be someone whose job it is to do that. And so we see our role partially as being oversight. I see questions in the chat about concerns about things, bias coming into play and political issues. And that's what we see our role as. And in order for us to be an advisor and make recommendations about the committee, about the grant review panel, to do a review process at the end of the year to see if was this successful, where do we need to tweak? That all takes staffing. Does that help, Kat? Thank you.
I'm seeing several questions in the chat, all basically related to how will it be made sure that people nominated actually have some expertise in the arts rather than are more heavily on the political side of things. Can anyone speak to that?
We can go to the ordinance where it states on page, let's see, section 5, A for membership, part 2. The Jersey City Arts Council may collaborate on nominations and recommendations. Committee members representing each ward, A through F, may be nominated by the public. Members should reflect the diversity of Jersey City. Nominees must be Jersey City residents and have 2 or more of the following: appreciation for the arts, professional expertise in an arts field, service to the public, and understanding of the Jersey City population and landscape.
Thank you for the info. I hope that helps out some people. I can imagine, well, actually, what I would be wondering off of that is what are the criteria for expertise in a realm of arts? What would be considered that? Has that been formulated yet? Like, for instance, when I was in the 6th grade, breakdancing was an amazing thing and I could almost do a decent worm, but that doesn't necessarily make me an expert in the world of dance that would qualify me for this. So I'm just wondering if there's some type of rubric in place or plans for it that would help qualify an applicant for expertise in a field of the arts.
That's a great question. I would, when you submit your nomination, you submit a resume that shows your experience in the field.
And also too, when nominees are selected in any committee or commission, the resumes all go to the city council and they're all on the agenda, and therefore all resumes are public. There is some information like personal address and phone number, that email, that are redacted just to protect the privacy of some individuals, but all of that, it's all a public process.
So just, yeah, we're happy to keep explaining and to just talk through this as much as possible. Yeah, that's good advice. You know, to talk through the committee structure. So I hope this provides a little bit of clarity that the mayoral appointment is with the advice and consent of council, and that anybody can nominate for the process, and that the Arts Council is written into this ordinance as being a part of this process to make sure that we're casting a wide net for who is on the committee, and to ensure that those names are moving forward, people who would be of great service in this area, and that those names are put forward. And then the mayor would appoint those names with the advice and the consent of council. So they would vote on those names as well, as a way to have as many people as possible involved in this process. And yes, I do think that, well, this is part of the role of the Arts Council as well. And certainly my Office of Cultural Affairs we think it's very important to make sure that there's a campaign out there, and to make sure that when this Arts Fund application is available, that we're getting to all areas of the city, to make sure that everybody knows that this is an opportunity. And we're open to lots of different approaches to, you know, getting there. And for part of that, we turn to our arts community and all of our partners who we heard tonight to help educate the public, get the word out. And when we have information sessions, when we have community meetings, when we have trainings and discussions, that you help spread the word to anybody you know that might benefit from hearing about the Arts Fund. Yeah, it's up to all of us to spread the word as well. And we do have a narrow window too, because, you know, we do want to try and keep this on track for this year. I'm sure for some people it feels like it's moving very quickly, but, you know, we do want to try and keep to our timeline as much as humanly possible. And you can see that at jerseycityculture.org, where we've laid out the timeline.
Thank you so much. It looks like we have one hand up from Smush Gallery. Do we have time for one more question before our next segment? Smush Gallery, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. This is Caitlin from Smush. It's nice to see everybody tonight. I am just getting on to put voice to a question I've put in the chat a couple of times, which relates to the role of the mayor appointing everybody on this committee. I understand, you know, why it is that way, but my question is whether there's room for that to be done differently. I am very interested in these appointments not coming back to a mayoral appointment. And I know that there are other, like the CCRB is being structured, I think, differently. And so my question is there room on this question, especially given that the mayor has expressed that he doesn't need to be the person that appoints everyone to this committee? And I'm just hoping to get an answer on that.
You know, I'll give a little bit of color around what's happening with the CCRB and the way that they're creating their committee. Initially, it was, first of all, that committee is going to be a committee of 11 people. So it's a larger committee. They had initially worked with some of the community groups that had worked with, had been working on the CCRB legislation. One of the groups, the NAACP, as many of you people might have learned, their chapter in Jersey City was closed. So now they have to be written out of the ordinance. We've had other situations where we've had community groups involved in the process of picking appointments, and the challenge there then is if you have X, Y, and Z groups, and like, let's say, for example, it is the nominating committee comprises all nonprofits. Well, then where's the voice for the individual artists? Where's the voice for the business or small business, right? And so everybody wants to have, I shouldn't say everybody, but oftentimes a lot of people want to have the seat in the process with that. And then that in itself becomes unwieldy. We've also had situations where the people who say they want to be in the nominating process don't actually do the work. And that is actually the worst case scenario, because that puts more that puts more onto the people who are in the nominating committee. And then even though you think it sounds like collectively you all appointing would be a good thing, that I've also seen that become political. And then that also pits other groups, other individuals against each other. So I know that there's the conversation of leaving the mayor out of that, but also this ordinance goes, until somebody else decides to change it or comes up with a better way of selecting committee. This is actually, you have to sometimes take the personality out of the ordinance and trust that the process will work. I know that that's not a popular thing to say, but there's no good way around it. And if you were to do also, for example, we don't have a mechanism in place to have this be an elected committee, right? We don't have the authority at the state level to do that. That would turn it into something else entirely. So knowing that we want to get this off the ground and get funding out by the end of the year, this is quite honestly there are checks and balances with the nominating process. This is actually probably going to be one of the most open nominating processes in the time that I've at least been involved with selecting committee members. The second most open was with the Open Space Trust Fund. And the way that was done was basically that the council members selected the people on the committee, and then the mayor had one appointment, and then it was also advice and consent of council. And I know that there was also concern that that model might not be the best model either. So I know this might not be the answer that you all like, but I will say that in my experience and considering our timeline, considering the checks and balances, considering that you all will be part of getting the word out for nominations, considering that the Arts Council is going to be a partner with Cultural Affairs in the process all the way. And this is a completely open and transparent process. That's why collectively we'd agreed that this was the best way to move forward.
Let me add on to that. I'll reintroduce myself for transparency. I'm an aide to the mayor, but that being said, I come at this role from an activist position, right? So I try to approach it as a way of not necessarily doing harm to this mayor, but protecting the citizenry from not just this mayor, but any future mayor, right? One idea is, if this system isn't perfect, what is a better system? But the other thing is, what is different from any other committee or commission that the city, or most commissions or committees that the city has, is that it's bicameral. It has two houses. All right, so it's a little bit, it's like the federal government, where you have both an arts review panel and a committee that's going to make determination on funds. So it's more difficult, if not, I won't say impossible, to have outside influence given that dynamic, that you're going to have a group of people that are going to exercise their expertise in the art field, weighing in on the individual values to individual products, projects and or organizations before it even gets to this committee, right? So it's not such that I can make sure that Bob gets funding, right? It's not going to be that direct. It's got to go through a review panel, and now this other committee will then have a say based on the local needs in their community, right? but I will always keep beating the drum beat. There's opportunity to make it better, but we need to kind of act, quickly on this. If anyone has any other ideas to make it cleaner, they should speak up. They should write to cultural affairs with their ideas and notions. Anything that we can kind of put in there. I know, speaking for myself and for the mayor, we will embrace that idea. It's just that what I think it was Benjamin Franklin said that democracy is the worst form of government other than all the rest. Like, I mean, this may be bad, but all the other ideas are even worse, right? So we want to make this as good and clean and as functional as possible.
I cannot figure out how to raise my hand after the whole year of Zoom. I'm sorry to just jump in. I'll figure it out. But I think just for those who are new to the conversation, because I see a bunch of questions here. The structure that's proposed is the application first goes to a review panel of arts experts who will be selected by the Arts Council in collaboration with Cultural Affairs. So we are arts people, Cultural Affairs is arts people, and we will look at those resumes. And at that level, those are arts experts. And we're going to do our best that if I'm putting in a grant application, we will have a grant application for dance, we will have dance people to look at that. If it's visual arts, there will be someone skilled in visual arts who's qualified to review. Those applications are scored by the arts experts and then go to this committee that we're talking about. So the committee makes judgments about who's getting how much money based on those scores. Because the scores are going to the committee and the committee meetings are open, everything will be available. And so, yes, we do, to Annie's question, we do expect the committee to honor the recommendations of the arts panel. So this was kind of the balance of how we came to this agreement and how the Arts Council felt that it did seem like a fair, balanced operation. Again, this is one of the other roles that the Arts Council plays and why we need administrative support so that we can be there, we can participate and do these things. I hope that helps a little bit.
I just want to jump in and say I really appreciate the responses to my question. I think I've floated this question in a couple of different meetings, and this is the most kind of robust attention that it's gotten, and I really appreciate that. And I'm just curious, what I'm hearing, just to say this back a little bit from Mira, is that this is imperfect, but perhaps the best idea that is available at this moment. And I'm hearing from Vernon that perhaps there is room to consider something else if we would get an idea together and send it over. And I'm curious what the timeline might be for that, considering that, most of us are not paid to do this work and are just kind of scooching it in around the edges of the rest of our work. When would we need to have something proposed if we wanted to say, yeah, here's an alternative to having the mayor actually, because I hear what you're saying about the checks and the balances, but the fact is the way, the ordinance is written, it all kind of leads back to whoever is in that office. So when would we need to get something in front of Cultural Affairs or the city?
Well, I mean, it's a larger picture discussion, right? So the ordinance needs to be put before City Council. It needs to go in front of 2 votes. Once that's done, then the committee process starts. Once the committee's formed, then they need to review this entire thing that we've created all together collectively, prepare these applications to go out. So, one thing, there's no cut and dry answer because one thing sort of affects the chain, which affects the timeline. So I would say, in the interest of keeping the train moving, I would send it. I'll put my email here. Oh, that's not ROG, it's supposed to be org. And the sooner the better.
I would even go further in that, just like with any other ordinance that is considered by the council, to a degree, there is never a too late. So if as a group, we talked about it and we came up with a great plan, and the plan was in place this time next year, well, then you can amend an ordinance, and you can, I mean, yes, it would be an uphill because you already had something in place. So it needs to be better than the plan that's in place, but there's always an opportunity to make changes down the road, right? So we need to kind of get going in order to get this process moving forward, so that we can allocate the funds that are going to be collected for this calendar year, but that we shouldn't allow the clock to be our enemy when we have an opportunity to always augment it. And maybe it's something that, you know, this time next year, you'll look at it and say, it wasn't that bad. Like, what were we upset about, you know? But if you're still at any point not happy with the process and want a different process, just come up with a better process.
Yep, and to Vernon's point, the ordinance becomes part of the city code, which is why it takes 2 reads, but our laws are always meant to be active, not static. I've been involved in other amending different ordinances over time, because we're going to learn a lot. Like, this is the first year that we're doing this, and I think that if we are working on process, on schedule, we'll be able to set ourselves up for success for first year. We're gonna have a bucket where all of this is like water into the bucket, and then we're gonna find holes. We're gonna plug those holes. The next year, we're gonna put water in the bucket. There's gonna be different holes. We're gonna plug those holes. So this is never anything that's set in stone. All suggestions are great. We welcome all of them. There are also too some things that we can and cannot do based on state statute. So that's something else that I want to also make really clear. Sometimes when we have to say no to something, it's because we don't have the capability. That's why there was no art fund until this last ballot on the memorandum, because the people who advocated over the last 2 years with the state assembly and then the Senate were the ones that made this into a state law that allowed the municipality to have a referendum question, to have the voters say, yes, we think this is a good idea, which allows us to set this up in the first place. So it's a bigger, broader picture when you're looking at it from like 10,000 feet than sometimes how we're looking at it at 1,000 feet at a city level. So I hope that that also helps a little bit.
So in the interest of covering everything that we had laid out today, we wanted to move over to the goals and priorities section. And certainly you can continue following up with emails with us, and we're going to continue the discussion. Do you want to go ahead and pull up that next piece? And it might help to zoom in a little bit if you can. Oh.
Give me a second. I stopped the share so I can zoom in.
Perfect. Heather, are you going to take this away? You're muted.
Sure, here I am. Okay. The Jersey City Arts and Culture Trust Fund seeks to create equitable access to the arts in Jersey City. That's our overarching goal. We strive to fulfill this goal by supporting organizations and individuals that expand the impact and inclusiveness of the arts in Jersey City, revitalize shared spaces through the arts, build community connections through art, create creative and economic opportunities for artists. Applicants will demonstrate high standards of artistic merit, demonstrate the ability to complete the proposed project with measurable goals, identify and implement a public benefit in their proposal that can be achieved within the grant timeline, submit a final report with stated outcomes. And then this is again, everything is a draft here. This is the first time we're sharing this. So we're going to discuss tonight, and whatever is left undiscussed, please email the Arts Council and/or Christine. But these are the proposed breakdowns of different possible grant programs. Grants are open to nonprofit arts organizations, art businesses, and individual artists. We would have a section of grants for arts education. We would have a section for programming, a section for operating grants, a section for individual artist grants, which we're proposing to be a fellowship program, possibly overseen by the Arts Council as part of our agreement, a program for public art. And then we are also working with this idea that annually there would be a sub goal that might change and be flexible. And obviously this kind of came about because right now maybe recovery is still going to be an issue, recovery from the pandemic. That might be a goal, something that we want to prioritize, but that is hopefully not a long-term thing. And maybe other things will come up where we see, okay, there's a need for this in this particular year. So that idea is about designating a percent for an annual goal that might be flexible and change over time. So I think what we thought we would do is break out into smaller groups to kind of talk through these and get the different groups' feedback on this. And we can also share this document after tonight if people want to look at it more and write to us. Sabrina and Justin, you'll have to tell us the best way to proceed here.
Okay, this is going to be fun, everybody. Hold on to your seats. We're going to create 3 rooms. One will be for nonprofits, one will be for arts businesses, and one will be for individual artists. That's a room for nonprofits, a room for arts businesses, and a room for individual artists. Now, I'm going to ask you to use the raise hand function to indicate whether or not you would like to join a room, and we'll take turns. So bear with us here. I'll create the nonprofit. So think if you want. Yes.
Yes. Interrupt 1 second. Sabrina, is there a way to put the file in the chat?
I will have to create a link for it and then put that link in the chat.
Now, when we go into our groups, will we not see this chat?
You will not see this chat.
Okay, you should have the ability to rejoin the main room, however. Now I see an option to allow participants to choose the room they would like to go into. So I'm selecting that. Room number 1, ooh, rename. This is so fun for me. Thank you everyone for bearing with. Okay, we're all set. In a moment, you shall receive the option to choose which room you would like to join. Cross your fingers for me, and here we go.
If anyone is having an extremely hard time with this process, if you can type into the chat what room you would like to be a part of. Again, those categories are nonprofits, arts businesses, and individual artists. We can manually assign you.
Could you just repeat the process to choosing the room ourselves?
You
that's
should
fine.
have received a pop-up message asking you to choose a room.
No.
Do you have?
Maybe the hosts didn't.
Oh, if you're a host or co-host, you might not have. Do you have your breakout room button on the bottom of your interface as a co-host?
No.
Nope.
I do, but I was more asking for our guests.
Well, ask for me too, because I can't find anything.
Oh dear. Well, if you are a co-host, you might not have received the option. We can try to manually push you to a room if you want to let us know what room you'd like to push you to.
It might be on the bottom, next to reactions on the bottom right. Maybe.
Looks like
Okay.
more people are finding their way. Remember, friends, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
So then, Justin, for the co-hosts, how are we getting into our respective rooms? Because when I look at the breakout room button, I can't select myself.
I
So
can push you to a room if you let me know what room you'd like to go to.
I will be individual artists.
Okay, let me try that. Stand by.
And I guess we had planned to be back in 5 minutes to share reporting on this. So maybe we can scrap that and kind of go towards, the plan could be to go towards the end and probably continue the conversation the next meeting.
That may be good. Anybody else would like to be pushed to a room?
There are a bunch of requests in the chat. I'm sure you're,
Okay.
I don't have the ability to assign people. We're getting there.
And Gretchen said nonprofit. Diane, nonprofit. Rosalind, individual. Heather Wall, nonprofit.
Thank you, Christine. This is helping.
Heather Wall, nonprofit.
All right, I've tried to send her twice now.
No. Kat, where do you want to go, Kat? This is nowhere. You're in limbo. Okay, can you put me to for-profits?
For profits. I don't think we have a room.
I'm sorry.
Arts businesses?
Yes.
Okay, one moment.
Stephanie, where would you like to go?
I will go to arts businesses.
All right.
I'm
All right.
a bit zoomed out. I love it.
Now we've got Alvin, Kat, and X Tina or Christina. Not sure which one you go by.
Might be Cross Tina.
Might be Cross Tina.
Let's try asking them to unmute one at a time and see. Kat, I'm asking you to unmute so you can tell us where you'd like to go.
Well, I guess if I have to choose, I'll go to nonprofit.
All right, sending now. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Alvin, asking you to unmute so you can tell us where you'd like to go.
Send me to art businesses.
Thank you very much. And finally, Tina, asking you to unmute. You can tell us where you'd like to go. Maybe they're not at their computer.
All right. In the meantime, I'm going to join arts businesses so that I can communicate with Christine about
When to come back?
when to come back. Yes.
Sounds good. I have a close all rooms button here, so when it's time, just let me know.
Okay.
Hello, Heather.
Hello, I'm kind of hopping around. I just greeted the businesses, so I'm going to stick my head into one of the other groups now.
Okay. Do you have the power to select?
I do. I mean, I
Great.
have the technological power. Do I have the emotional fortitude? We'll find out, Justin.
Okay. Keep me updated.
Justin,
Yes.
this is like a bad episode of Quantum Leap. All of a sudden I'm just yanked into another time zone and I'm going, no, not now. Oh, no.
Hey, that was a very compelling show, so there's something to be said for it.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a few things as we come out of this. Obviously, we could have had this discussion. I mean, if you feel like I do, for another hour. There's a lot to be said. There's a lot to dive into. I'm also just going to address the fact that, you know, the goals and priorities piece of this. You know, we like to get things out ahead of time. The ordinance was out at least 5 days ahead of time. And it's just the function of the fact that we all have, you know, we're trying to keep this moving out of respect for you and the timeline. And the reality is it's a lot of work, and this was what we were able to do. And we felt like it was important to hear. Yes, I'm looking at the chat right now. We felt it was important to break into smaller groups to really be able to start some of these deeper conversations and to get some initial feedback. This is just initial conversations, and we will follow up with the next date, which will be in April, correct, Stephanie?
Yes.
Okay, so we will follow up with that date where we can continue having these discussions. In the meantime, we will post this draft of the goals and priorities for you to continue to look through and to think about. And you can always contact us directly in the meantime. The jerseycityculture.org will have those documents posted on it. And is Heather here? I don't see her, but Heather, is there anything I missed?
No, I'm here. I've added in the chat. I'll just say that In Full Color is doing a grant writing seminar so if anyone is going to be new to this process and wants a little guidance, that's April 19th, and you can find them on Facebook. In Full Color Us, I believe, is their handle. Yes, we will make time for more conversation, and as always, email the Arts Council. And yeah, that's it. Thanks so much, everybody.
I have to say for the record, there was some trepidation to this experiment this evening. I walked into a room half expecting to have my head handed to me, and I met a bunch of fantastic individuals that were so kind with their knowledge. I can't tell you how much I appreciate every single person who made a comment in the room. As we came back here, I said it was like a bad episode of Quantum Leap where they rip you out of one time and put you in another one. I was like, no, I don't want to go back to this room. I want to stay in the nonprofit room for a lot longer. It was great to hear from each and every one of you. I'm going to post my my phone number so that anyone who wants to talk to me offline, they can continue this conversation if they're not totally finished with all of my verbosity. And thank you very much. I just like I said to you, every one of you.
Thanks, Vernon.
And one thing else, Wycliffe, yeah, you're gonna have a hard time getting that out of your head now.
I would just like to say thank you to everybody for being great participants and giving me the opportunity for putting the most amount of adults at once into timeout and sending them to their rooms that I ever thought I would. So that was fun. I'm checking that off my bucket list. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to work through this process. I think we're doing some really good work here. We got some great feedback from the individual artist room. So we look forward to that further conversation and understanding the priorities as it relates to the priorities that we've sort of fleshed out on the initial round of feedback. So, please keep reaching out, send us your ideas. Like I've always said, everything is on the table. So, just keep sending it. Please do, because this is how we get the real work done.
And thank you so much, Sabrina and Justin, for rocking this meeting. And Christine, any closing words? We'll keep the chat open for, I guess, 2 minutes after we're all done. So if anyone wants to copy notes down, Christine?
Thank you to NJCU for hosting these, and we're going to follow up with the next meeting date. Maybe we'll touch base after this, Stephanie, and get it on the calendar so we can send it out very quickly. Do we already have the next date, by the way?
We have an April 13th date that was going to be a professional development, but I'm happy for that to be a date for talking. We've got a lot to talk about, so.
Yeah, I do definitely feel like we had to end with a lot more to say. So April 13th?
It's fine with me.
We'll email everybody too.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I will leave the meeting open for 2 minutes before closing if you'd like to copy anything from the chat down.
I think Ashina meant to write breakout session with orgs, but I would also welcome any essential oils that anyone would bring to any meetings. I think those could be nourishing too.
Yes, it sounds lovely.
Yeah, next time if we could figure out how to get the get the scent through the computer.
Put them through the computer, yeah, through the
You know
fan.
what you meant, Ashina. Thank you.
2021, the rise of smell-o-vision. I love it. And that's our time. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.